We are told that wars are fought over ideals, over territory, over liberty or tyranny. This is the official history, the one taught in schools, printed in textbooks, and echoed in solemn remembrance. But what if the deepest, most devastating conflicts in human history were never about the flag, but about the ledger? What if the true cost of global confrontation was not measured in lives lost, but in debt created? Look closer. Before the first shot is fired, before the first treaty is signed, a transaction takes place. A handshake occurs in the gilded, silent rooms of capital. A paradoxical truth emerges. The greatest engine of human destruction is the greatest engine of global finance. Every shell, every tank, every mobilization requires credit. And credit is power. We live in a world where global debt now exceeds $300 trillion, a number so vast it loses all meaning. But this number is not an accident of reckless spending. It is the deliberate architecture of control. Nothing is as simple as it seems. The wars of today were bought and paid for by the bonds of yesterday. This is the nexus. Here, where history, power, and economy collide. The central paradox of the modern world is simple. Global stability is an illusion maintained by global debt. We stand on the precipice of constant crisis, and the trigger is not political ideology, but financial insolvency. Consider 1914. Britain, France, Russia, Germany all entered the war with seemingly stable currencies. Yet within months, the sheer expenditure demanded by industrial-scale slaughter broke them. They needed money, not gold. Gold was finite. They needed new money, created out of thin air, leveraging the future prosperity of their unborn generations. This is the connection you were never meant to see. The war machine is fundamentally a debt machine. Every crisis, every military escalation instantly legitimizes the creation of more debt, simultaneously concentrating power in the hands of those who issue it, the central banks. Everything is connected in a vast, self-reinforcing loop of borrowing and conquest. To understand the present, we must go back to the crucible of the 20th century, the First World War. Before the U.S. formally entered the conflict in 1917, American financial institutions were already deeply entrenched. J.P. Morgan & Co. became the principal purchasing agent for the British and French governments, coordinating billions of dollars in loans and bond sales to fund the Allied war effort. This wasn't mere commerce, it was financial warfare. By deeply financing one side, Wall Street ensured a vital interest in its victory. If the Allies lost, those loans, billions upon billions, would be instantly worthless, collapsing the American financial system. This decision, made by a few unelected financiers in New York, effectively predetermined the political landscape. The initial decision to lend was the true declaration of war. It wasn't the Kaiser's torpedoes that drew America in. It was the threat of financial ruin if their debtors defaulted. A private sector decision in 1915 secured the political decision of 1917. This single event molded the entire economic power structure we navigate today, cementing the unbreakable alliance between Washington's foreign policy and Wall Street's bottom line. How does the system function today? It operates on the principle known as the invisible architecture of power. When a government, say Washington, wants to wage a war, launch a global aid program, or simply run a deficit, it issues treasury bonds. Who buys them? The world's largest financial institutions, and crucially, the Federal Reserve and other major central banks. The central bank creates new money digitally, exchanging it for these bonds, government debt. This is the mechanism. The political power of the state is paid for by the monetary power of the central bank. The government gets the spending power, the banking system gets the interest payments and the leverage. The engine is debt, and the fuel is the promise of future tax revenue. This debt, denominated in a dominant reserve currency like the US dollar, then becomes the lifeblood of global trade, forcing every nation to accumulate that currency and thus the debt of its issuer to trade effectively. The web is vast and intentionally entangled. Every major nation is simultaneously a debtor and a creditor. China holds trillions in US debt. US banks lend billions to developing nations. European capital flows into Asian manufacturing hubs. This is not a system of simple bilateral loans. It is a single, globalized cycle of mutual dependence enforced by the need for currency and credit. This interdependence is both the source of its strength and its ultimate fragility. When a crisis hits, the money doesn't simply disappear. It performs a rapid, controlled transfer. The loss suffered by a nation in economic collapse is immediately absorbed as an asset by an institution in a more stable jurisdiction. No one owes a single visible culprit. The world is beholden to the system itself. Hovering above governments and treasuries is the true, untouchable layer of power. Here we find the shadow institutions, the largest global asset managers, the rating agencies, the hedge funds, and the supranational bodies like the IMF and the World Bank. These entities do not fire missiles, but they can trigger an economic collapse with a single keystroke. A downgrade by a rating agency can instantly raise a nation's borrowing costs, plunging it into default. The sudden withdrawal of capital by a major hedge fund can decimate a currency. Their power is not derived from votes, but from scale and liquidity. When nations like Greece or Argentina face historic debt crises, who dictates the terms of the bailout? Not the people, not the parliaments, but the financial consortiums, demanding austerity and privatization. A quiet, ruthless transfer of national assets to global capital in exchange for breathing room. This is the invisible hand operating not in a free market, but behind a veil of sovereign desperation. The consequences are tragically real, manifesting as human suffering. Look at the Weimar Republic in the 1920s. Crippled by impossible war reparations debt, the subsequent hyperinflation wiped out the savings of the middle class, creating the economic desperation that fueled the rise of extremism. The financial collapse preceded the political one. Look at Argentina in 2001. Decades of foreign debt, often facilitated by corrupt leaders and eager lenders, culminated in the largest sovereign default in history. The streets erupted in riots. The currency collapsed. This was not a natural disaster. It was a failure of a debt architecture that prioritized the creditor's return over the nation's solvency. The cycle repeats. Debt today is always paid by tomorrow's suffering. The great revelation, the truth that underpins this entire system is this: the system was never designed to be paid off. The goal is not repayment. The goal is perpetual indebtedness. If every government paid off their national debt, the world's money supply based on that debt would collapse. This is the motor oculto, the hidden engine. Debt is the necessary fuel for economic growth as we define it. The system must always expand, always borrow, always promise. The moment the world stops borrowing, the system stops. Therefore, constant crisis, controlled wars, and strategic instability are not bugs in the code. They are features. They necessitate government spending, which requires more debt, which feeds the financial engine, perpetually transferring authority from the politician to the financier. What is this massive architecture of power, debt, and global influence truly sustained by? Trust.
Every single dollar, euro, yen, and yuan is a promise, a non-negotiable IOU. It holds value only because every participant, every bank, every nation, every citizen agrees it holds value. This is the inherent, breathtaking fragility of the entire global financial structure. It is a shared mass delusion. What happens if that trust collapses? Not gradually, but suddenly. If just one major actor, a reserve currency issuer, a central bank, were to admit the debt is structurally unpayable and the currency is merely paper backed by nothing but faith, the entire system would seize. The money supply would evaporate. The collapse would not be slow. It would be instant, a global economic cardiac arrest that makes 1929 look like a minor market correction. This structure, driven by debt, is the greatest mechanism for wealth transfer ever conceived. The money does not